Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. This is a special series, 7 Stages of Life, for Adrienette April. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying it so far. This is stage 2. Massive shout out and thank you for Jade Carol for her commission piece of artwork for this series. It is absolutely beautiful. I love it. Each one will have the combination and then the separate piece. So make sure you go and send her loads of love. All her information is linked down below. Send me loads of love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it and what you think will happen next, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on the next stage of life and other series and one-shots that are happening at the moment. And I hope you enjoy. Stage 2, Just Friends. Adrien, 14 years old, and first day at Collège Françoise Dupont. Adrien woke with that strange, exciting feeling in the pit of his stomach. The one you would get as a young child on the morning of your birthday or at Christmas. In the last few years, that sensation had faded away until today. But this morning, it felt like they combined both celebrations into the same day with the ultimate present of freedom. Anticipation emitted out of his entire body throughout the night and made sleeping difficult. Even when he closed his eyes, strange scenarios plagued his dreams of who he'd meet, Chloe being, well, Chloe, and various subjects on his timetable. It wasn't often he was fit to bursting with anticipation. He could count on one hand how many exciting new things had happened to him to create this glorious sensation. It meant change. It meant growing up and getting out of the shadows of his parents, especially his father. The last time it had happened was the summer he had attended camp, which was now 4 summers ago. The most amazing 2 weeks of his life where he could actually be a kid, but it was also where he had met the best person. Well, had been the best person he knew, Marinette. She was who a friend should be, all wrapped up in an adorable package. But it didn't seem like it was meant to be after a year of silence to his letters. Perhaps if he was lucky, he would make another friend just as amazing at this new school. Once he had turned 13, the deal was he would start attending actual school so that he could sit exams, and someone had suggested it might look better on the university application and gain influence from the school. He had tried a couple of weeks at various private schools his father's associates had recommended, but none of them stuck. The first fight wasn't his fault. They had verbally attacked his mother with slander, followed by his father. Later that night, after the whole "I'm disappointed in you" speech, his father had explained the other boys were doing it as a power play, to show dominance to the new threat. However, his mother didn't approve of how the head teacher had handled the situation and decided that wasn't the school for him. The second one wasn't any better. If anything, it was worse, with none of the added benefits of his extra studies, including fencing, and his mother didn't like the idea of him living away from home for so long. This back and forth continued, exhausting a list of the highest regarded schools, until Chloe came round one afternoon and declared he should enroll at her school, which was only a couple of blocks away, and they had a fencing program. His mother was set on the idea, regardless of his father disagreeing, which meant it would happen. Today was the day. Today things would finally change, and he was ready. He shoved his Lucky Charm into his pocket and gave the pressed daisy in its little frame a light tap as he walked past to his bedroom door. "Morning, darling. Are you ready? Have you got everything sorted? Maurice will drop you off and pick you up." She held her hand up in front of him, knowing he was showing a look of protest on his face. Only whilst you get yourself settled in. But, Mother, we had talked about me taking the bike since it's only a couple of blocks away. Adrien swung his bag over his shoulder in a huff. I know. Please, don't give me that look, my darling. It will just be for a couple of weeks, whilst you get yourself sorted. Now, have fun, keep your head down, and please, no fights. You're not a superhero who has to take on everyone else's battles, you know. Yeah, I know, and I promise, it will be different this time. He didn't understand why he seemed to jump in when he saw someone being misused in one way or another. But his mother was right, it had to stop. Fighting had caused a distance to grow between him and his father. It was also the cause for his father to object in returning to camp the following summer and see Marinette. He had already sacrificed too much for fighting. He wouldn't lose this chance too. Adrien leant his head down as his mother kissed him lightly on the top of his blonde hair before heading out the door. As usual, there was no sign of his father, stuck in his office, going over another design. Adrien jumped into the car, waiting out front, and tried to control the surge of butterflies in his stomach. Through the tinted windows, he watched as a crowd of students ascended the school steps, talking to one another about the events over the weekend. He guessed. Oh, he would have that soon. Friends to chat away with. Weekend events that weren't planned out by his parents. Filled with only adults and, if he was lucky, Chloe. She still wasn't his idea of a friend. Not since he was shown what a friend should be. Followed by the pain of losing her. Not a single word. Not a single letter after he sent her one every day for a whole year. Talking to her like they had in the Miraculous Clubhouse. About anything and everything. Well, until one day his mother had told him to stop and that he wouldn't be attending camp again. The sunshine was instantly clouded over, and every daisy he saw after that stung his heart. But 3 years had passed, and he was no longer that innocent child who believed he had met his best friend, his other half, his soulmate at 10 years old. No, he would be happy just to have a friend to chat with, and watch a movie, play video games. Here goes nothing. Adrienne's, the loud voice called out amongst the parting crowd, and revealed Chloe strutting towards him. Well, at least he had one to start with. Finally, you've made it. Morning, Chloe. He tried to give her a wave as she threw herself at him in a massive hug with a smug grin on her face. He knew that look. This was for show, for all to see, apart from no one was paying her any attention. You're with me. It's all arranged. You'll be attending most of my classes. There are a few your parents insisted you take, which I don't. But if you show me your class list, I will tell you who not to talk to. Thanks for the offer, Chloe, but I think I can figure it out. It'll be fine. He yanked her arms off his neck and took a step back as the school bell sounded out. Suit yourself, Adrienne's. Now, you have a locker for your stuff, which I will show you at break. Sabrina, there you are. Now carry my Adrienne's bags, will you? His eyes shot wide at the suggestion, staring at the sudden girl who had appeared beside them, and the idea of treating a friend like that. No, I'm good, thanks. He held up his hand in protest and was realizing maybe he didn't know his only friend as much as he thought. I think we had better. He dashed forward out of arm's reach. He failed to see the girl darting up the stairs as they collided together. Both bags tumbled to the ground and spilled out the contents before them. I'm so sorry. That was completely my fault. The girl quickly rammed her notebooks and the items into her bag as Adrien did the same. No, it was me. I was rushing, the girl said, keeping her head down. The voice. There was something familiar with the sound. Stop littering the steps, marriage trash. Chloe spat and was now at his side. Chloe, that isn't... His words caught in his throat as the girl lifted her head, a deep blush across her cheeks. No, it couldn't be. Sorry, she jumbled over the words, snatching her bag up and darted up the stairs. He couldn't help staring after her. His mind was racing. How could it be her? What were the chances? Let's go, Adriens. We don't want to be late, thanks to that annoyance. Chloe flicked her ponytail back and tried to grab at his arm again. Who was that? What you called her? He stood on the top steps and gazed at the open courtyard, the seats along the edges and the various stairs leading up the iron walkways, hoping to get another glimpse of her. Who? Her? She's a nobody. Don't even think of it. She isn't going to be your friend. This way. Sabrina stood in front of them and gestured to the door at the side, like she was a waitress showing them to the table. He was about to protest when the door opened to the teacher standing in front of the class and gave him a warm, welcoming smile. Aha, welcome. Please come in. The woman gestured. I'm Miss Bustier, and very pleased to have you join our class. The teacher gave him a slight nod and then gestured to the row of students. He turned round and saw a dozen faces staring back at him. The butterflies took flight once more, churning up his stomach with their activities. Some had inviting smiles, some were questioning, some weren't showing any notice, and then his eyes landed on the girl he had just crashed into. Her face was a different shape, less squidgy. A sudden memory of them each squeezing the other cheeks whilst challenging them to speak a limerick in their clubhouse, resulting in them rolling around and howling in laughter. Was it her? Could it be? His hand felt for the lucky charm in his pocket, rolling the beads between his fingers. Her eyes were slightly larger, and the sea blue had turned into vast oceans, which were surging with huge questioning waves as she stared back at him. Class, this is our new student, Adrien Agress. I hope you will make an effort to welcome him. He couldn't remove his eyes off the girl who had suddenly reappeared back in his life, watching her eyes become wider as the realization kicked in. He was about to step forward, mouth open, when a hand landed on his shoulder. Adriens is with me, and one of my best friends, Chloe said beside him, giving his shoulder a tight squeeze. He tried to shrug off the gesture whilst watching the girl Chloe had called marriage trash. Was it Marinette? His skin prickled underneath his t-shirt as the sweat ran down his back, grateful to wear his shirt over the top, but wished the blush that was forming across his cheeks would calm down. Her eyes darted from him to Chloe and then back onto him, shifting from wonder to shock to pain to anger. Yes, thank you, Chloe. Take a seat, please, and Adrien, you can sit at the front there. Now, where were we? Adrien at once felt a push in his back as a hand grabbed his attention, waving in the air in front of him. Dude, take a seat, the boy laughed. Yeah, thanks, Adrien replied, slipping in front of the girl he had been openly staring at, but who was now fixed on her notebook. I'm Nino, by the way. The boy grabbed the rim of his red baseball cap and nodded his head, giving him a wide grin. Hey, I'm Adrien. He smiled awkwardly. Yeah, I guess that, dude. You alright? First day jitters? You could say that, Adrien said, grabbing his own notebooks and pens out of his bag and placed them on the desk, wishing he had an excuse to turn round. The teacher skimmed her finger along the tablet, reading out names of his new classmates as she went. Then she said it. Marinette Dupang Chang. His heart literally skipped a beat. He had heard of the saying, but now he felt it. He couldn't stop himself from spinning around as she called back, Yes, miss. Her eyes shot up and landed on his. Air caught in his chest, heart skipping, heat in his cheeks. It was her. They had found each other again. Her eyes searched his, filled with questions, but they lacked the happiness he had hoped for, daydreamed about seeing once again. Instead, a storm was brewing inside of them. Was she not happy to see him again? Had it all been a lie? Their friendship? Was that why he hadn't heard from her? It hurt at the thought of it, the same pain he felt at saying goodbye to her, and when his mother told him to stop writing her letters. He rolled the beads back and forth. No, there had to be something else he was missing. Dude, he felt a tap on his shoulder. You need to face forward, his new friend said with a snigger. That was a great way to start his new class, to be completely distracted by the girl behind him, as he scribbled notes not from the lesson, but at forming a plan for them to speak. Clear the air, and the unbelievable second chance of having her back, his friend. He fumbled through the first half of the day, blaming it on the nerves. Once the bell rang for lunch, Adrien quickly placed his books into his bag and spun round. Marinette! She stared at him blankly, taking him by surprise. It's Adrien from camp. Oh, hi, she said, focusing back on her bag. Do you two know each other? Nino said, darting his eyes from one to the other. Yeah, we both... No, we don't. Not really. I thought I did, she said, refusing to look at him. Instead, looked at the girl standing beside her. We had better go. Adrien couldn't believe what he was hearing. It felt like the pain had returned. What was she talking about? Wait, this is Adrien? Her friend declared, eyes wide and shooting out silent questions before turning and facing him. Hey, I'm Alia, and you know my boy, Nino. She gestured between her and his new buddy, Nino had called them. I've heard a lot about you. What are the chances? Alia, we need to... Wait, please, Marinette. Can we talk? He rolled the beads in his pocket, thinking of her own bracelet sitting next to the daisy. Adrians, come here. We have plans for lunch. Chloe called out behind him and watched Marinette's face harden. I think your friend wants you. You don't want to keep her waiting. It might give the impression you don't care about your friendship. Marinette's tone didn't sound like he had remembered. It was cold and harsh. She snatched her bag off the desk and darted out the classroom before he could configure his thoughts and respond. Wait, what? He said, but she had already gone. What was happening? Why was she being like that? He's the one who should be angry after not hearing back from all of his letters. We had better. Alia nodded her head to the door. It's nice to finally meet you, Adrien. Anyway, but we had... Can you tell me? I don't understand what just happened. Why is she... I need to talk to her. Please? She was crushed, dude. Nino started, and then stopped when he received a look from Alia. Please, we were best friends, and I need to know. Adrians, I'm waiting. Alia's eyes bore into his, searching for something. Fine, we'll help. Can you ditch Blondie there in 30 minutes? Adrien nodded. Meet us in the park across the road. I'm not promising anything. Thank you, I'll be there, Adrien said, a sense of hope returning. He picked up his bag and turned to see Chloe standing at the door, tapping her foot, and her friend looking anxious. He inhaled deeply, masking over his thoughts, and placed on the polite smile. Chloe, can you show me where the lockers are? It had taken some work to outmaneuver Chloe and sneak away, to the point he had to hide in the boys' toilets for 10 minutes, turning his hoodie inside out and slink around the cluster of people gathered in the courtyard. Once down the front steps, he glanced around for a sign of Chloe and darted across the street to the park. He had done it. Standing at the gate, his eyes searched the various benches until he saw her, laughing and smiling with her friends. She had friends now. Maybe that's why she didn't need his friendship. maybe this was a bad idea. His thumb rubbed the engraved flower on the green bead. No, he needed to know why. Even if it meant finally answering to questions he had repeatedly asked himself over the years. He was glad he hadn't had time for lunch, as the butterflies stormed inside his stomach. "Hey, Adrien! What are the chances?" Alia noticed him approaching and called out. "Hey!" He waved awkwardly at the three of them, his eyes glued to the back of Marinette's head, watching the sunlight shimmer off her dark hair, still reminding him of duck feathers. Marinette narrowed her eyes at her friends. "Alia? Girl, come on. Don't look at me like that. Hear him out whilst Nino and I grab something." "What do we need? Oh, okay." Nino gave him a smile that was warm and friendly, making Adrien hope that at least he had gained one friend today. "Smooth, you two, real smooth," Marinette moaned. His cheeks flushed as the heat rose up and spread across his entire body. Why? Why was he putting himself through this? "Maybe I should..." He gestured back to the way he came. "No, you stay. Talk. We will see you back at school." Alia grabbed hold of Nino's wrist and held him to his feet, causing him to stumble slightly. Silence hung in the air between them for what felt like hours, but in reality it had been seconds. "I didn't think we would meet. I mean, see you again? What has it been?" "4 years? I'm not surprised. Is that why you never replied?" She swung round and finally faced him, stunned to see the pain reflected back. "What do you mean, never replied? I was the one who sent you." He took a step closer to her. "Adrien, it's fine. We were kids who were friends for 2 weeks. I get it." She cast her gaze at her fingers, fiddling with the yin and yang charm on her bag. He perched on the edge of the bench. "No, I don't think you do, Marinette. You were my best friend. Of course I wanted to stay in touch. You meant everything to me, to the point I wrote to you every day." Her eyes shot up at his words, holding an expression of disbelief. "Adrien, I never received a single letter from you. I wrote to you. I even sent you small gifts, but never once did I hear back. So I guess that maybe you had changed your mind. I begged my parents to return to camp, but it wasn't the same without you. My father refused. After the fight, I had abused my chance, something like that. But Marinette, I promise you, I wrote to you every day. It became almost like a diary. I would tell you all the little random things I would get up to, or simply collect all the jokes I had come across. I was crushed." Those were Nino's words. He had described it. "So you were telling me we wrote to each other, but none of us received them? How is that even possible?" She raised her eyebrows at him. "I don't know." His thoughts landed on an idea. No, they wouldn't. He wouldn't. Would he? "And now what? You are attending my school? You are friends with Chloe? You remember that friend I told you about? The bossy one?" "Oh, yeah, that's her." She let out a light laugh as bright as sunshine. "Yeah, I see now. But you know what's hilarious? You know that girl who'd been teasing me?" "Yeah, you mean that was Chloe too? She is the one we've had in common all this time? That is funny." A chuckle burst from his lips, transporting them back into the clubhouse. "I'm really sorry, Marinette, that you thought. No wonder you didn't want to see me again." "I'm the one who should be sorry for this morning, for how I reacted. It's just your friendship had meant a lot to me, so when I didn't think you felt the same way, I became a little bitter about it. But that isn't an excuse for my behavior." But you told Ali about me? He gave her his eyebrow wiggle dance and grinned at the laughter he received back. Well, yeah, you would be my first true best friend before her, so I might have told her some of the stories we had gotten up to. I'm glad you made more friends, Marinette. He couldn't help the tone of sadness. Tiny splatters of rain dripped onto his hand and then onto his head, causing him to glance upwards and sigh at the thought of spending the rest of the afternoon wet. He hadn't noticed Marinette rising to her feet and standing in front of him now, one hand reaching out for his whilst the other held onto a black umbrella. A shot of lightning flashed across the darkening sky, followed by a deep rumble of thunder. Come on, if we are fast, we might make it back before we get drenched. The warmth of her smile filled him up from the inside out. Thanks. Does that make us friends again? Not just friends. Best friends. Now come on! She entwined her fingers through his and yanked him down the path, dancing around the large puddles which were already forming. He stepped out of the car in determination. He would look his mother in the eye and get her to tell him the truth. How was your first day, my darling? She greeted him at the top of the steps. Her white blonde hair and soft pastel colours looked radiant under the afternoon sun shining down on her. It was great. Guess who I met? He stared at her and continued, not giving her a chance to answer. Marinette, you remember her? He watched the smile fade from her face, giving him the confirmation that he'd feared. Mother, did you? Not here, my darling. She cast a gaze around. Come with me. She gestured for him to follow her into the house. He had half expected to turn left into his father's design office, but instead she veered right, down the long corridor and into her own private sitting room, which was designed in soft, warm colours, books lining the walls and armchairs you could fall into. This was one of his favourite rooms of the house, where he felt comfortable rather than on show. Please, tell me the truth. The letters? Mine. Hers. He dropped his bag on the rug and slumped into one of the chairs. She rubbed a hand across her forehead, casting a gaze at her shoes, the coffee table, and even the silver button on her sleeve, but not at him. Why? Why did you do that? You watched as I dropped off? Where are they? His tone had become harsh, one he had used with his father before, but never with his mother. It all felt surreal. Heartbreaking surreal. It was your father's idea, seeing how attached you had become to her as you said goodbye, after we had received the phone call of getting into your first fight due to her. That wasn't what happened. The boy attacked Marinette first, after she defended me, and you always told me you never hit girls and you should step in. That's what I did. But you thought it was Marinette's fault? So you what, forced our friendship to end by lying to me? You didn't send my letters, but did I receive ones from her? Oh, I see. Maybe it was wrong of us. Maybe? Where are they now? I didn't destroy them, if that's what you think. I would never do that. She took a step to the side and grabbed a large storage box off a shelf and presented it to him. They are all in here. Her ones to you, including the parcels, and yours to her. He dropped to his knees and hauled off the lid. Stacked neatly, with some of them tied off with a ribbon, were his and her letters, sitting side by side, waiting for the day to be read. Eyes wide in disbelief, he darted his stare from the box to his once perfect mother. I am so sorry, Adrien. At the time, I thought it was for the best, that it was a phase you were going through. I never imagined that we would run into each other again, that I would find my best friend, the best person I've known. No, I guess you wouldn't. Adrien, please. It was a mistake on our part, and I'm genuinely happy that you found your friend." His fingers skipped over the rows of folded paper and 10 little wrapped parcels with a handwriting carefully scribbled across the front. "Part of me isn't surprised by father making that decision, but you, mother? I even cried one particular night at feeling alone before making the deal to find a school, and all along you had this, knowing I had a good friend reaching out to me." She stroked a hand across his hair in a calming manner. "At the time, I thought it was for the best, but now I realize it wasn't. Do you forgive me?" "As long as you expect now that Marinette is my friend. She is a key part of my life, and I don't know, call it fate, but now that I have a second chance to have her in my life, I'm not going to let her go." "Do you love Marinette? Have romantic attentions towards her?" She shot an eyebrow up and saw a playful smile spread across her lips. A deep blush exploded out of his cheeks. "What? No. Marinette is just a friend. She isn't, we aren't dating." "So your feelings about her, your rosy apple cheeks, aren't an indication of love?" He brushed his hand through the air dismissively before placing the lid back on. "Not that way. Plus, we have only made up. Her friendship is the most important thing. Speaking of which, I'm gonna go and read through these." He rose to his feet, nestling the box against his chest. "I understand, my darling, and I'm sorry for everything." She gave him a knowing look as she returned to her usual chair. Without another word, Adrien closed the door behind him and made his way up the marble stairs to his room. On his bed, he sighed as he took a handful of envelopes out of the box and divided them into 2 piles, the ones he sent stacked next to Marinette. More and more of her letters piled high until they tippled over and spilled across the bedspread. His name, beautifully scrolled on the front of each pink rectangle, overwhelmed him in a scale of emotions. All this time they had been here, waiting for him. When he felt alone, there had been Marinette, his loyal friend, reaching out to him. Picked at random, he tore open one of the pink envelopes and pulled out the 2 sheets of paper. "Hey, Adrien. So, today Papa let me help in the bakery, and I got to try out a new recipe. You would have thought passion fruit macaroons would work, but they really do. Papa wasn't sure if the customers would like them, so to prove him wrong, I placed some samples onto a tray and handed them out to people passing by. To say I was nervous is an understatement, but I did it. I bet if you had been here, you would have been proud of me, or came up with a game, or better yet, a competition, who would be the fastest. I imagined all the puns you would have said. To be honest, I came up with the recipe with you in mind after you told me how much you enjoyed the sweet, tangy flavour." He imagined her soft voice reading out the words to him, filling him up inside with a blend of warmth and grief at not being there by her side, helping her, and indeed coming up with the puns. This time he opened one of the parcels and laughed at the handmade badge of the Miraculous Club, remembering how they had spent their first afternoon in their new clubhouse, sketching out logos Marinette was going to design onto a flag. After all, it is a fact that all good clubs houses had a flag. But this one was different to the original design, which had been a ladybug body, but in each spot had a different symbol for each hobby they enjoyed, like music, art, crafts, and fencing. What he was staring at symbolized their friendship. An image of a hand-painted daisy with a ladybug on a petal and what looked like Blackie on the other. In the center of the flower looked like 2 handprints, reminding him of the cave that had started the idea, whilst on the outside was embroidered green leaves. It left him speechless as he ran a finger over the fabric. She had done an amazing job, and now to think he had a second chance at recreating the club, and maybe Ali and Nina would join it. Oh, the idea of having 3 friends would be amazing. But then again, how would she react once he told her it was his parents that had stopped their friendship from blossoming? His eyes shifted from one daisy to the other he had kept safe. She had made him a daisy promise, a flower which meant innocence and purity. However, it was also resilient, a flower that could survive against the frost and the blazing sun. It could get trampled and spring back up again. That would be them. That would be their friendship. How they had happened to meet, formed a fast bond, even fought for one another, and now against the odds, found each other again. They would survive this too. Sometimes words weren't enough. He had to show her how much she meant to him. He gathered all the letters and gifts, placing them carefully back into the box, except the badge. That he put into his pocket. Jumping off his bed, he picked up the framed daisy and her friendship bracelet, adding them to the box. He sent a quick message to his mother and another to his driver. Adrien requested to make a stop on the way to Marinette's. The florist was stunned to say the least when he asked if he could buy all the daisies they had in stock, and presented him with an extremely large bouquet tied with a pink ribbon. He was surprised when they passed the school and stopped between the park and the bakery. How had he not noticed it earlier that day? With the mouth-watering smell issuing from the shop, imagining Marinette standing out front with treats, and the balcony at the top, seeing a glimpse of fairy lights, and how she had described it being her own private spot in Paris. He sighed with relief when his driver pointed towards the blue door at the side of the building. Taking a deep breath and ignoring the butterflies which had plagued him all day, he knocked 3 times, paused, once, then twice, paused, and finished it off with 4th. "It's for me," she heard Marinette declare on the other side of the door. It burst open to her standing before him with the widest grin on her face. "You remember!" "How could I forget our secret knock?" he said with a smile that matched hers, but guessed his cheeks were a darker red. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by. I haven't got your number to call first, and I wanted to explain, show you something." "Yeah, sure, come in." She twirled a strand of hair around her finger as she stepped aside. "First, these are for you." He presented her the bunch of daisies he had been trying to conceal behind his back. "Wow, Adrien, daisies. To renew all the promises we made to each other, and for all the new ones we will make, moving forward, in our friendship." "I've never seen so many promises before. I love it. Can I ask what's in the box?" Her fingers brushed lightly over the white petals. "Can we go somewhere to chat first?" The smile faded slightly as she conveyed its expression, reading between the lines. "Yeah, of course. We can go up to my room. Follow me." She guided him past the back door of the bakery, the delicious smell causing his stomach to grumble, and remembered he hadn't had lunch earlier. The sound catching them both off guard, and burst out laughing. "Wait a minute, I think we are needing some snacks," she said, darting into another room and coming back out again a few minutes later with a small basket filled with tempting golden treats. They ambled up the stairs and then directed him through another blue door, taking him into an apartment. It was cozy and homely, with a small kitchen spreading to the living room space. He had pictured what Marinette's home would look like compared to his own over the years, a distinct contrast, and this didn't disappoint. "My room is just up the stairs." She closed the door behind her, shuffling around him as he just stood there, staring. "Are you all right?" She paused on the bottom step. "Yeah, all good." "Okay then, follow me." She balanced the flowers and basket with one hand and pushed open the trapdoor with the other. Stepping into her bedroom, Adrien couldn't help feeling flustered, even though he didn't understand why. They were just friends. Well, fingers crossed, best friends, but it wasn't like a date or anything. Ignoring his mother's words from earlier, and then he remembered what was inside the box. "Grab a seat," she pointed to the pink chase at the far end. "I'm gonna place my promises into some water. Do you want a drink to go with the snacks?" "Yes, please." He placed the box down at his feet and sat awkwardly on the seat. "I'll be 2 minutes." He heard the rumble of her feet darting down the stairs, opening and shutting cupboards in a hive of activity. "I love your room," he commented while smiling at the desk with various projects happening, her bed on a higher level, and noticed the window above, guessing it led to the balcony. "Yeah, it's pretty cool. What's yours like?" She placed the tray on the coffee table and sat down on one of the cushions on the floor. "It's big, but not cozy like this. It reminds me of your hugs, warm and comforting," he said, failing to notice the blush creeping across her cheeks, but rather focused on the box in front of him as he hovered his hands above the lid. "So, one of the main reasons I wanted to come over was this. I had no idea, but after we talked at lunchtime, I went home and confronted my mother." Her eyes went wide as she stared at the box as if it was about to explode. "I want you to know I had no idea, and I'm still really angry with them, and I understand that it might change things again." He let out a long breath and lifted off the lid. He carefully pulled out 2 sealed envelopes, one of each, and handed them to her. "My parents, mother, really stopped mine from being sent and must have hidden yours before I had a chance to see them." "They didn't want us to be friends. But why? I'm not good enough?" "You are, of course you are. In fact, better than, clearly. But my father, after he heard about the fight we had gotten into..." "When you were defending me?" "And you me, well, that was it. The whole concept of camp and friends and freedom was a bad idea. And my mother, she says it was what she thought was best at the time, but now she knows she was wrong." "But she kept them. Can I see?" She shifted closer to him. "First, can I give you something?" She nodded, holding out a hand. "I think this belongs to you." He dropped the bracelet and grinned at the gasp. "I have mine everywhere I go. I even call it my lucky charm." He reached into his pocket and pulled it out, placing it next to the other one. "You kept them, even after you hadn't heard from me?" "Well, yeah, because if fate hadn't brought us together again, you were still my first true friend who I cherish." Taking him by surprise, Marinette flung her arms around him, reminding him of their last hug they had shared and how much he had missed it. But her scent had changed from sugary strawberry to a creamy vanilla and coconut. "There is also one more thing I want to show you." She pulled away, her smile pushing up her rosy cheeks, but her expression changed again as he lifted out the framed daisy. Her eyes glazed over as she stared at the dried flower. "You became the daisy, giving me strength during hard times, remembering your words, your laugh, your smile. To others it was 2 weeks at camp, but for me, it meant the world. It meant someone accepting me for me. It meant freedom." "Adrien, I don't know what to say. You dog? But I can't believe..." Oh, wait!" She jumped to her feet and dashed up the ladder to her bed. "Cat!" she shouted before something black hit him squarely in the face. "I said cat!" She laughed. "Blackie, you kept him?" "I cuddle him every night. And no, you can't have him back." Looking at the strange black blob with 2 eyes and a sewn-on mouth, No wonder people thought it looked weird. He brushed it against his cheek, like he used to do, and noticed it smelt like Marinette. Fine, Daisy, you can keep him. Oh, is that my nickname now? Well, I'll have to think of one for you. She grinned, shuffling beside him. What else is in the box then? Adrien chuckled with a lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. Grabbing one of the pastries from the plate, he watched her eyes sparkle as she lifted out more boxes and envelopes to open. They spent the rest of the night fixed in the same position, reading to each other the letters they had sent, sharing stories and of course giggles at these various puns. Tonight was their first re-established meeting of the Miraculous Club and best friend status, sealed with a daisy promise. Thank you so much for listening to stage 2, Just Friends. Make sure you look out and stay tuned for stage 3, which is coming out tomorrow. And I will not give you the title just yet. And so make sure if you enjoyed this, smash that like button, show me some love, comment down below what you think of it and what will happen in the next stage of life, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on this Adrienette alternative series and other one-shots and series that are happening right now and to come. And I hope you're all good, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.